All right, delegation. This is assigning a specific task to a specific person. And there are 5 rights to delegation. That is, the right task is the first one. So you should not be delegated the task of passing medication because that's not within your scope of practice. But it would be acceptable for the nurse to delegate a task to you to give a shower. Okay, the right circumstance. If Mr. Jones is having great difficulty breathing, okay, and the nurse says, go and give Mr. Jones a shower, that may not be the right circumstance. He may not be able to tolerate a shower, but may rather be able to tolerate a bed bath. So looking at the circumstance, right task, right circumstance. The right person, okay? Are you the right person for that job? If Mr. Jones is a 6'5", 350-pound man, and you are a 90-pound, 5-foot person, you may not be the right person to transfer Mr. Jones into the shower chair, right? You may need some assistance, or they may need to choose a different person of a different size. That's just one example. Okay, the right direction or communication. So when a task is delegated, there needs to be clear communication as to what the expectations are of that task. So that is the responsibility of the person delegating, and also your responsibility to clarify any questions or gray areas that need to be cleared up. And then right supervision and evaluation. A person who delegates a task to you should be making sure to follow up that you did those tasks. Follow up and evaluation is a part of their role as the supervising nurse. Now remember, you cannot ignore an assigned task. You must respond. So if you're asked to give a shower to a resident and for some reason you don't feel that you can do that, maybe they're always combative with you, you don't feel it's a safe situation, something like that, you can't just ignore it and not do it or leave it for the next shift. You do need to address that. If you don't feel like you're the right person for the job, you need to speak with someone about that or get some help. And you can't ask someone else to do the task for you. CNAs should not be delegating to other CNAs. Your supervising nurse delegates to you, you do the job, or you come back to them and tell them why that job was not done and face the consequences of that. Care plan. A care plan is a written plan for the resident. This helps to guide the care that the resident receives. Every resident in the nursing home should have their own care plan. It's not a cookie cutter thing that each resident is going to be treated the same way. They all have very specific lives, very specific health issues, very specific needs, and their goals should be different. So things that would be included on a care plan might include like their activity order. Do they get up and walk with the assist of one? Are they in a wheelchair? Are they bedbound? These are all things that might be in their care plan. And diet. What kind of food do they eat? Do they have a soft diet? Do they have a regular diet? Is their food pureed? These are all things that might be included in that care plan. So the care plan, there is there's something called the nursing process, which if you go on into nursing school, you're going to learn a lot more about the nursing process and developing that care plan. But I'm just going to briefly go through that right now. There's assessment. So they're looking at the resident and assessing what their needs are. Diagnosis. Now, diagnosis is not, it's a nursing diagnosis, not a medical diagnosis. So we're not diagnosing them with a disease, but we're diagnosing what the problem is that we need to be setting a goal for. Planning, how are we going to achieve the goals that we're setting? Implementing, that means we're putting that plan into action. And then evaluation, did that goal that we set, did those plans that we made, did they work? And if not, then we need to start back over, right? So with a care plan, it's really important that you're communicating. You are very much a part of this team. It's the nurse that writes the care plan, but you are the eyes for the nurse. So if every time in the past, you've always walked, or the care plan says, let's say that your resident is an assist of 1, and every time you try to assist them with walking, they're very unsteady. They become very unsteady, and now they need assist of 2. This is something that you should be communicating with the nurse and other healthcare team members so that they can have those changes and goals changed within their care plan. Same with at dinner. If they're not eating their food, why are they not eating their food? Do they need softer food? Are they choking or coughing when they're eating? Maybe there needs to be a change in the diet. And these are things that you should be observing and reporting because that's a big part of your role as the CNA. So like I said, your role is observing and reporting. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let me go back one. Signs. So there's signs and symptoms. So signs are objective information. This is information that you see, hear, touch, or smell. Okay. Objective. So when you think objective, it's something you observe. You see the O and the O of objective and the O of observe. What can you see? So, some examples of that, well, here, let me go through symptoms first. Sorry. So objective information, something you observe. Subjective information or symptoms are something that the resident, or the family member reports to you. Subjective, say what they say to you, right? So objective, observe, subjective, say. That's how you keep them straight in your head. So let's talk about some observations. So changes in their mental status. Okay, somebody who was always bright and cheerful in the morning, now you've noticed that they are quiet and withdrawn. These are things that you can observe. So that's objective. If their family member says, I've noticed mom is really sad, then that would be something subjective. Okay, and a subjective observation. Vital signs are objective because you are measuring those, you're observing those. Those are things that are very set in stone. But pain is subjective. Their pain is something that they have to tell you. We all experience pain very differently. So keep that in mind. Changes in their ability, like we gave the example of them walking to the bathroom. If you are observing that that they're struggling, that they're weaker, these are things that you would report, and those are objective because you're observing it. But if they say, I feel so weak, my legs are numb or something like that, that's subjective because they're telling you that. Skin, changes in appetite, toileting, and mood. These are all just other things that you can be observing when it comes to toileting. When they have a bowel movement, what is the consistency of the bowel movement? What is the color? Appetite. How much are they eating? Their skin. Is there bruises? Is there sores? Is their skin pale? Is it clammy? Is it hot? These are all things that you can be observing. So know the difference because you will see it on the test and you'll see it on the final and you'll see it probably on the state test, but know the difference between objective and subjective observations. And you can read more about that in your book. This is just some more examples of observations that you would want to report right away to the nurse. So if they're short of breath, if they're complaining of chest pain, pain in the calf of the leg, which could mean like a blood clot, any kind of blurred vision or slurred speech, that could be a sign of a stroke. The shortness of breath or chest pain could be a sign of a heart attack, and then bleeding of any kind. So these are all things you want to tell the nurse right away. Some other things that would be important to be reported. Vomiting. It does not take very much vomiting for an elderly person to go downhill fast. They can become dehydrated very quickly. Weakness or dizziness dizziness, abdominal pain, any vital signs outside of normal values. So this is really important. I really preach this with my students a lot. You have to know what the norm is. If you want to be able to report if it's out of range, right? You have to know the normal ranges. So we'll start working on that soon. Headaches and falls, these are all things that need to be reported to the nurse right away. Okay, so the healthcare record is a legal record of care. And when you chart in that, you need to remember that. You need to remember it is confidential. And anything that you write in there needs to be accurate. If it is, some places it may be written, a lot of places things are computerized. Don't chart before you do the task because you never know what's going to happen. So always chart after. Don't wait till the end of your shift to do all your charting. Try to chart throughout the shift because then it's more clear in your mind as to what's happened that day. And make sure you never give your password to anybody because there is an electronic footprint that's left, and if somebody else has your account password, they can go in and go places that you can get in trouble for being. You should only be looking at the charts of those you're caring for and that you have a need to know that information. If you are snooping and looking in other people's charts that you don't have any direct care to, you can lose your job and you can be fined a lot of money for that. So be smart and only go where you're supposed to go when you're in electronic charts. There is some guidelines in your textbook on page 42, so make sure you take a look at that. Remember, it is facts, not opinions. Make sure that you accurately describe what the wound, the bowel movement, the whatever it is that you're describing in your charting. And then a lot of times in charting, military time or 24-hour clock time is used. This is something you're going to have to understand the concept of and be able to utilize for your test. And also it will be on the final. So this shows you a clock demonstrating military time. If it is in the AM, so that would be like 0100, like 1 o'clock in the morning is 0100. You don't use the colon, you don't use AM or PM, it's just 0100. And then if it was like, let's say it was 6:37 AM in the morning, you would put 0637, 0637 is how you would document that. So as far as military time with PM, okay, you're just adding, you're going from 12 and then you're adding whatever number it is, and then that gives you your number. So if it's 3 o'clock PM, you would go to 12 o'clock and you would count over 1, 2, 3. So 12 plus 3 is 15. So that'd be 1500. And you can see that on the clock here if you'll look at that. Let me give you another example. Let's say it's 7 o'clock. So 7 plus 12 is 19. So that's 1900. And so this is just a way to not have confusion in charting with whether it's AM or PM. Maybe you can't read the handwriting, things of that nature. It's a great way to keep that straight. Practice this. There is a handout in your on the D2L that you can practice. It's a clock page, and you can just get it out and write the AM and the PM military time, and then go back and check it with this handout or this slide if you would like. But you need to be savvy about how to do that. All right, so just go through, do your homework, prepare for your test, your quiz, and if you have any questions, email me and let me know. Thanks.